Ladies and gents, welcome back to Punk Politics with me, Thompsin. Well, it's been quite a week. It's been as depressing as it was weeky. British judges began sentencing offenders to freedom as the UK's prison system reached over 100% capacity. Yeah, how about that? That's absolutely chocker. Well, what does that tell you about the state of things? Well, yeah. Prison is really popular. And of course, this comes only a month after terror suspect Daniel Khalif escaped jail, leaving broadcast rounds Grant Shapps in a tight spot.
Just wait a minute. Just close your noise hole. Yes, obviously we would like professionally run secure prisons, but it's not my brief. I'm not the Justice Secretary. I'm not even Grant Shapps. I'm Kaiser Soze.
I love stories like this because it's so obvious what the actual problem is. Do you think maybe we might be underfunding the prison system here, lads? Do you think maybe all the cuts and the outsourcing have maybe caused some problems here? Although, I don't know, maybe there's something that I'm not getting here. Maybe it is all part of the government strategy, maybe they can't afford to fund the jails, right? And so then the prisoners are going to escape. So all you're really doing by sending them there is paying for a very expensive, brief but Victorian Airbnb. So I don't know, maybe by not sending them to prison, you're sort of cutting out the middleman, perhaps. In that spirit, it sort of makes sense, doesn't it? Jailing them would be sort of inefficient in a way, wouldn't it? Interestingly, when prisons are full, Sunak's Justice Secretary appears willing to let violent offenders out to roam free. Sorry lads, there's no room at the inn, so I guess just be on your way? And yet when his Home Secretary fills up her underfunded asylum centres, it's
just stuff those filthy scroungers on the plague barge.
And we're well, you can't just lock them on this Legionella-ravaged boat, you psycho. They're cockroaches, Aid, and cockroaches can survive a nuclear winter, so I think they could do a British autumn with the But surely we should be putting violent offenders on the Bibby Stockholm before refugees. Come on. How deep does that racist fear and hate go? The fear that a refugee might be a baddie versus the scientific certainty that this guy is one. Oh, that's a thinker. Anyway, elsewhere this week, the last few hours of the Labour conference became quite an amusing affair as Greg Hands, or as he's recently rebranded, CCHQ, spent 24 hours going insane on Twitter. Almost an hour now of policy-free content from Sir Keir. There was quite a bit of policy there, mate. More than an hour from Sir Keir in his conference speech and nothing on immigration, nothing on inflation. Were you watching the same thing as us, or?
Fuzzy and blue, that's me, I'm fuzzy and blue. It's just...
No, this is ridiculous. There's nothing about inflation on this. God, he's a joke, isn't he? Have I told you about my flip-flops I made of Sir Keir? Have I shown you my note? Oh, I wish you would leave a note, you nutty bastard. God, he's a card, isn't he? Oh, I see Sir Keir opposing Rishi's pragmatic approach to net zero. That's going to be an extra 15 grand hitting British families. Oh, Greg. Oh, you're mixing up Britain's families with your donors again, aren't you? Yeah, you silly goose. Anyway, this went on for hours, just this slew of distractions, desperation and outright lies from both his own Twitter account and CCHQ's. It was hilarious. Just barrel scraping, ape slinging his own feces level of... I wasn't surprised at all when Hands came out saying, I am CCHQ, because consuming content from either is like plugging your headphone jack into a puddle of shit. After that, Hands seemingly took a well-earned break, passing the baton of Bellendry to his direct reports. Or Brewster's minions. With Twitter shortly becoming a veritable Tory beach, washing up shit after shit with every wisp of wind. Indeed, Thursday we saw MP after MP, hack after hack, each one quote-tweeting Keir Starmer interviews, ones in which he appeared to struggle to answer the question on whether he thought it was okay for Israel to blow Gaza to pieces.
Keir Starmer, you've said that Israel has the right to defend itself. Does that include cutting off food, water, power to Gaza?
Well, what we've seen is appalling and shocking acts of terrorism, the murder of...
I'm very clear.
Israel must have that, does have that right to defend herself, and Hamas bears responsibility.
A siege is appropriate? Cutting off power, cutting off water?
Well, I think that Israel does have that right. It is an ongoing situation.
Which is like, I get it, you know? These are abysmal interviews. These are poor performances. But I'm always amazed at how quickly Conservatives will attack Labour, even when those attacks draw attention to their total absence of governance. Like, you can absolutely appraise Starmer for being woolly and watery on this. God knows I'm disappointed in his and the Labour front bench's stance on recent events.
And Israel has every right to defend itself, and Israel should be able and must be able to defend itself.
Do you think cutting off food, water and electricity is within international law?
I think that Israel has an absolute right to defend itself against terrorism.
That's not the question I asked.
It is an answer to the question that you've asked, and I think it's an appropriate one at this time.
But how do you criticise Starmer not getting it right when, like, A, he isn't the actual Prime Minister in office as all of this is unravelling? Like, I know he had a good week at conference, but he's probably about a year away from entering number 10. And B, the actual Prime Minister, your guy, is where? Exactly. Like, it's nutty. Like, it's like half of politics Twitter is like, I'll tell you what, I'm not a fan of how Labour are handling this geopolitical crisis. I'm like, are Labour the government now? Are they? Did I miss the election? Oh, man. I mean, I knew that they were looking at trying to take the vote away from us, you know, voter ID, voter disenfranchisement. But I never dreamed they would go the full hog and remove the GE from us entirely. Like, seriously, like, when was it? When was the election? When did Labour become the government? Did D. Ream perform? Because while Starmer was fielding questions and desperately trying to find a centre ground between looking prime ministerial and not appearing anti-Semitic, geopolitics' size 6 starlet here was where exactly? On a private flight to Nottingham PC World. Yeah! International World War III crisis cooking up, and Silicon Valley Sunak here is like, Claire, or Greg, could one of you get me the keys to the Boeing? Oh my God, he sounds really serious. Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's the international emergency that's going on. Where is he going? Tel Aviv? Cairo? Maybe the White House? Hi, yes, I'm the British Prime Minister. I came as quickly as I could. It's an urgent situation. Is there anyone here who could help me erase some old WhatsApps? Oh, for the love of God! Yeah, that was his input to geopolitics this week. A domestic flight to Curry's, and then pretending to be excited about the Euros. Although, you know, to be fair, pretending to be excited about a football tournament, I mean, he's never really been more relatable to me. But seriously, where is the pressure on Sunak? Why isn't he in an LBC studio getting grilled like Starmer? And you see, this is what we mean when we say the Conservatives get to play politics on easy mode. Because Starmer gets grilled, dissected and challenged. Sunak is like, well, he's treated like a sort of, a superficial ITV dramatisation of a political leader, isn't he? We don't pressure him. We don't hold him to account. He's just, he's the PM, and then there's photographs and tweets and a bit of PR, and that's all he is. Anyway, back to Starmer.
Keir Starmer, you've said that Israel has the right to defend itself.
Defend herself.
Defend itself.
Defend itself.
Like, truly, doesn't it feel ridiculous to anybody else that this is the line they've agreed on? This is the one they've all been briefed to respond with. My own personal theory is that this is Labour's attempt to shut it down quick before they're dragged into a broader conversation about whether it's cruel to remove power and water from people. Because they know there's a fairly good chance that, within the next 2 years, in the middle of their tenure, it will be Britain who is living without power and will all be forced to drink water too.
Does that include cutting off food, water, power to Gaza?
Oh, do I support removing clean water and electricity and forcing 1 million people to abandon their homes in a humanitarian crisis? Oh, that is a good question. Now, watch and marvel as I completely ignore that and instead magic these measures into some sort of preemptive defensive one.
Defend herself.
Like, how can you just shrug off the revenge aspect of this, you know? The state-sponsored, murderous layer to it. Like, I understand the anger, you know? Like, what Hamas did was barbaric. It was grotesque. But responding to that with airstrikes, drone strikes on millions of civilians, giving them a 24-hour deadline to move to nowhere, you know, because it's like a million people who can't leave anyway because, oh, you know, that's right, you and Egypt blockaded them. Well, we would love to help, but we won't. I wish that we could love to help, but we don't. It's just weird. It's weird that we don't want or love to. Anyway, good luck with it all. Like, bag that all up, you know? The bombings, the indiscriminate nature of it, the eye for an eye, the lack of a route out, and to then just shrug it off like, Israel has a right to defend itself. It's quite obviously morally bankrupt. It's like, imagine your wife lost her leg in a road accident and it's bad. Like, we get it. It's just awful. It really is a trick. Like, she loved that leg, so it's bad and it's harrowing and awful and it shouldn't have happened. You know, 19-year-old boy racer just plows into a Fiat and now she has to adjust to this new life, sort of physically impaired and maybe walking with a crutch or something, right? Anyway, then imagine 6 months later, you catch her attacking this kid and his entire family with a machete. And you're like, no, Susan! But as you're trying to stop her, your wife's best mate Sharon steps in like, oh, bun it, Dave. Stay out of it. And you're like, what? And she's like, just shush, Dave. She's got a right to defend herself. And you're like, it's not looking too defensy right now. She's got a right to defend herself, Dave. Right, but like, why is she laughing maniacally and telling us to join in? She's got a right to defend herself. Like, why is she putting music on now? Like, obviously, there's a lot of history to Israel, to the territory, to the religion, all of that at stake here. And clearly there's a need for, you know, people like me so far removed from it to just, you know, maybe listen about it, you know, pause more than we opine. But I'm just saying, if you're a political leader, it is just not good enough for you to keep pretending that, I don't know, Palestine is Hamas, or that defending yourself is the same as a state-sponsored bombing campaign and humanitarian crisis. Finally, the whole thing reeks of British exceptionalism. The idea that we have to get militarily involved at all feels kind of ego-y to me. Oh my lord, there's a bit of unrest over there, is there? Oh, okay. Well, we better send the Brits in to sort it all out. Like, I know that hundreds of thousands of Brits will have been touched by the events that took place there over the last week because they will have friends and family over there. And so I suppose there's an expectation that the UK state should reflect their concerns diplomatically. But we have to understand that any solution we arrive at with this, one that achieves a ceasefire, or hopefully a lasting peace, will be a solution that is coordinated by the trade blocs of the world and the countries who serve as neighbours to the chaos. So that means who exactly? That means Egypt, Iran, the BRIC nations, the Arab League, the United States. Like, the idea that Netanyahu is trembling by the phone, just waiting to hear what James Cleverly thinks, is kind of fantastical. Like, honestly, what do you think a foreign leader is going to make of the British state right now? They'll be like, now you listen here, I really think you need to rein in the bombing, old boy. Oh, is that right? Is it? Or what? Like, what are you going to do? Arrest me for levelling Gaza? And what? Sentence me to freedom? Anyway, that's it from me for this one. What are you guys making of it all? I mean, between CCHQ, the conference, his inability to get Sean Bailey elected, is Greg Hands the worst political campaigner of the modern era? Do you think the government's new progressive take on crime and punishment, i.e. letting all the prisoners run free, does that fill you with confidence from the party of law and order? How do you think this Gaza-Israel thing is going to shake out? As ever, let me know in the comments below. But right now, I'm out. I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. Did you enjoy it, Dad? Did you like it? Absolutely bloody shite! Oh, good. Yeah, bellend.